Let's be real. Have you ever been in an argument where you had all the facts on your side, you laid them out perfectly, and nothing? The other person just digs in deeper. It's so frustrating. Well, today we're going to crack that code. We're borrowing some incredibly powerful techniques from a place you'd never expect, FBI hostage negotiators, to learn how to have conversations that actually go somewhere.
So what is going on here? Why do our most logical, well-researched arguments just completely hit a brick wall? You feel like you're speaking a different language. And honestly, in a way, you are. And here's the science, which is just wild. Research from Yale shows that when you challenge someone's core beliefs, their brain doesn't see it as a debate, it sees it as a threat, a literal, physical threat. The parts of their brain that handle logic actually start to shut down, so they're not hearing your facts, they're basically in fight or flight mode.
Okay, so if we're fighting against biology, how do we win? Well, you don't. You change the game. We need a whole new mindset, and we're taking it straight from the negotiator's playbook. From now on, your goal isn't to win. Your goal is to make the other person feel so heard and understood that they actually give themselves permission to think differently. This is the key, the whole point. You're not trying to prove you're right. You're trying to make it safe for them to be wrong. Think about it. When someone feels attacked, they build walls. When they feel safe, their mind opens up. And that is where change can actually happen.
So, how do we build that safety? It all starts with a few simple listening and de-escalation tactics. These are the tools that are going to bring the temperature down and switch off that biological alarm bell in their head. First up is a technique called mirroring. It's so simple it almost feels like cheating. You just repeat the last few words they said, but as a question. So they say, "The whole system is rigged." You just calmly respond, "The system is rigged?" And then, this is the most important part. You shut up. You just wait. That silence prompts them to explain, to dig deeper, and tell you what they really mean by that. Next, you're going to do the exact opposite of what your instincts tell you. You match their energy, but in reverse. If they start getting loud, you get quiet. If they start talking a mile a minute, you slow your speech down. You become the calm anchor in their storm. And if they're obviously emotional, don't argue with the emotion, just acknowledge it. I can tell this is really important to you. It completely short-circuits their expectation of a fight.
Okay, this next one works like magic. Your job is to summarize their point maybe even better and more clearly than they did. When you nail it, you'll hear two magic words, "That's right," or "Exactly." That's the signal. The moment you get that, you know they feel heard, and you can literally watch their defensiveness just melt away.
Here's a tiny change that has a huge impact. Before you say anything in response, just wait. For 2 full seconds. 1, 2. It feels a little weird at first, but get this. Studies show that simple pause makes you seem 30% more credible. It shows you're actually thinking about what they said, not just reloading for your next attack.
All right, so you've used your listening skills to calm things down. Now you can bring out the heavy hitters, questions. But these aren't just any questions. They're specifically designed to shift the other person's brain from defense mode into explanation mode. This is maybe the most important swap you can make. Your instinct is to say, "That's wrong." Never say that again. Instead, get curious. Ask a genuine question like, how'd you get there? Or, what led you to that conclusion? You see what happens? You're no longer attacking their position, you're inviting them to explain it. It changes everything. So what happens when it gets personal? When they say something like, "People like you always think you know better." Your gut reaction is to say, "No, I don't." But a negotiator does the opposite. They turn that personal attack into a request for information. What gave you that impression? It brilliantly deflects the jab and puts the focus right back on their thinking process.
Now, for when things get really heated, this question is your fire extinguisher. When they're at their most emotional, you calmly say, "Help me understand what you mean by that." This is like a Jedi mind trick. It forces their brain to switch gears from the emotional, reactive part to the logical, explaining part. It calms them down without you ever saying, "Calm down."
You know, when we dig really deep, we find that every argument is really about self-protection. People aren't just defending some random opinion. They're protecting something they value deep down. Their family, their identity, their sense of fairness. Your real job isn't to attack their position. It's to figure out what precious value they're protecting.
And that brings us to this critical difference. You have to label their fear, not their flaw. Calling someone paranoid is a personal attack. It's a flaw. But saying, "It sounds like you're worried about where this is all heading,"
That's labeling their fear. One is an accusation, the other is an act of empathy. It keeps the door open.
So when you start putting all these pieces together, an incredible shift happens. You stop being two fighters in a ring and you become two partners, side by side, looking at a problem together. And that is the only environment where a person will ever truly change their mind.
At the end of the day, it's pretty simple. There are two paths. When people feel attacked, they'll defend even the craziest idea to the bitter end, because now their ego is involved. But when they feel respected, when they feel heard, they get the space they need to re-examine their own ideas. And more often than not, they talk themselves into a better position.
So the big takeaway is this. You don't win an argument by proving you're right and they're wrong. That's a hollow victory. You truly win when you turn an adversary into a partner, and you both start looking for the truth together.
And how do you end it? Not with the final statement, but with the final question. Something like this. This question does two powerful things. It honors that value you figured out they were protecting, and it frames the future as a team project. This is the kind of question they'll be thinking about for days.
So in the end, what's the smartest move in any argument? It's not proving how smart you are. It's making them feel respected, heard, and smart enough to have the confidence to change their own mind.